the upper arm. Okay. And so we've really done a lot with the shoulder, but we're going to do a certain amount of repetition with the whole process now. And start with here. Now, when we're working with it, and a lot of times one of the things that we tend to not pay as much attention to as we actually should probably is this choroid process that sticks out from part of the scapula that's coming through in here. This is really important because this is really where your biceps muscle, one hand of your biceps muscle is attaching to, besides the pectoralis muscle coming down, the pectoralis minor coming through. So this choroid process is coming through, and what we have is we have the chorobrachialis muscle, which comes from here and attaches over. But you can see this groove right here. This is really where we get the biceps muscle coming through that groove, going here and going here. So let's take it and draw this a little bit now. So first, we take the idea now. Start with thinking of the pit of the neck, sternum, feel the rib cage. Remember, it's high and back. And try to make a real point of thinking of the clavicle as it pulls, turns, goes through. So we're having that, as we talked about when we were dealing with that before, it's really like a bicycle hand coming out. Then this corner right here. The scapula is taking in, attaching on the end here. The choroid process is coming out from underneath in here. Your glenoid cavity, in other words, the joint, through and the scapula is going behind. Now, with the arm, the humerus is taking and attaching through, coming out. And we'll put the arm out this way. Actually, should be a little bit higher than here. Now going out through. And notice I'm making a really strong corner here for the inside of the arm. So this is really a prominent point that you really get it. It's a medial condyle thinking in terms of this point. Okay. Now, your choroid brachialis muscle is pulling from here. This is actually a pretty large muscle. And it's something that a lot of times we really don't think about very much about. This is taking and coming through here. If we take and if you raise your arm up, in other words, if we take and look at this with the arm going way up like this, and then the scapula being in here, and this coming out, we can actually see the clavicle, in other words, down. This becomes a strong shape that pulls through into the armpit here. Now, on the exact opposite side of this now, if you can think of these two muscles as being sort of somehow as mates, that we come down from here on the other side. Now, we need to look a little bit more at the actual bone here. You look at the way this bone comes down. There's actually a pretty strong curve to the shape of this bone as it comes down. Here, this curve through here, coming down, coming through, and the way the radius and the ulna take and attach here. So let me take and draw this a little bit because we need to think this curve as it comes around. So if you're looking at this, you can feel this curve, and I'm pushing this idea of the curve of this bone coming through. And the shape, this is like, it goes like this, but then the ridge comes up onto this, and the bone, the way it takes and turns. So we get this sort of thing building up, and then we feel this corner here, the ulna, and it's fitting in here. And your radius is working in here and going through this way. So what we have is the brachial muscle, which is taking and attaching on the other side, and it's coming down and attaching right into the ulna in here. But this is underneath the biceps, and this is one of those muscles that we tend to sort of overlook. We don't really think about back there. We always focus on the biceps and the triceps, but this brachial muscle is underneath that. And it gives a lot of the bulk in here. So this, as it comes down, fitting into the ulna here, the radius is here. It's coming down and attaching at this point. So this is a pretty large muscle now, coming down through and pulled down and pulled in. It's attaching right here then. And it actually fills in a lot of this space at this point right here. So we see this is the brachial muscle. This is the carobranchialis, which is just on the other side of that bone now. Now, where this attaches, right here, is actually where the deltoid comes down to. So, if we look at this from a simple, let's take and do this sort of a straight down shot here. We have the end of the scapula here. Clavicle would be the bump behind that, coming up here the neck. Scapula is going on back down this way. The joint then is right here. We're going down the arm here. Now, your deltoid takes and attaches, let's say right here. It's pulling from all the way around, and we talked about this already with the shoulder, but pulling from here, all the way around here, coming down along the back, and so it takes and pulls down and attaches right here. Going around behind the corner. And right where it attaches is where the brachial muscle starts. So you have the brachial muscle taking and going down this way then. So this is the beginning point. So that deltoid now is pulling, coming around and attaching right at that spot. And pulling all the way around the corner, coming through, taking, pulling down, coming through to that point. Now, the bicep muscle. When we take and start thinking of how the bicep works in here, is that you have to think of the shape, the actual shape of the muscle, because it really affects how we see it. So the biceps is actually coming across. Now I'm going to take and draw the shape here, and we'll do this whole thing again now. The shape of the biceps muscle is something like this. It's got two heads. Like this. Out, down, down. Then it has a section that takes and pulls over the other muscles. Okay, it pulls, it goes through. Now, when we see this, so this is really fairly narrow. Goes through, and of course, the guys work out and what have you, it can get really bulky. But this head here goes through that joint here, the end of the muscle, end of the bone there. I'm talking about has this, it has a groove in it, like this. And if we look at the bone here, you can see right here, there's this groove that takes and goes through here. So one head of the tendon of the muscle takes and goes through, and then attaches back in here. The other head comes over and attaches over to here. So we've got these two things that are coming across. Then the muscle comes all the way across and attaches over here to the radius. So what the interesting thing about the biceps then is that it's nowhere attached to your upper arm. It's only attached back here and here. But there's no attachment at all on here. So it's really a muscle that's on top of the other muscles that are dealing with the upper arm. Which makes it really sort of interesting is that this shape right here then, this shape is really a sort of a misleading thing. I'm going to take and draw over this, and then we'll take and draw it again. Is that when you, so it's coming over, attaching over here. It's going through, over to that notch in here, and coming through. And we have these long tendons. Now, you have to ignore that biceps for right now. It's coming through the tendon, coming across this way. The biceps, then the muscle is taking and coming up. And it actually goes at a diagonal because it's going over to the radiuses. Of course, that depends on how the arm is turned. We've got this pulling across this way now. From here to here, coming down and attaching to here. So this is actually a diagonal, as you see here. Now, this part of the shape here really takes, and we talked about the muscles off the chest, the pectoralis muscles that take and pull off of the chest. They go over these tendons this way. So that and I'm going to draw as if it was like dissection, so I'm thinking of the cross section of that muscle is very, very thick in here. And this would be taking and going over the surface in here. Now, the deltoid comes around, and it's coming over here, and this pulls and goes over behind this also. So now we're getting this, the pectoralis muscle pulling in at this point right here. You can feel this coming across, in other words, your pecs, okay? Then the deltoid is taking and coming around and going over this surface in here. But all of this is going over this sausage with two heads to it. It's going through this point here. So we tend to think somehow that this is the muscle's really big and these are going over a large part here, but it's just going over the tendon part of it. This is sort of all fitting in at that point as we're drawing it there. So they're going over and through, and what we get underneath in here, and filling in this space, then you can see this is, we get the brachial muscle coming through in here. Now, we look at this from a little different angle. I'm thinking it's sort of a coming down up this way, and the arm coming, lower arm coming out this way. So we're seeing this direction now. Now, when we're drawing the arm this way, first we take, and you're always focusing on where the scapula comes through, and where the clavicle would be up here. The cardiac process along the corner, the clavicle going down, coming out, turning the corner. Okay. Now, the bone, visualizing the bone is in here, coming down. Now, you look, you really try to make a point of trying to see the condyles, the corners. Here, and the other end, and then almost. So the elbow, these 3 points become really critical in the fact that you've got this curve here. So we're actually focusing a bit on the idea that you have this curve, and we actually end up having a sort of a line, a seam in a sense coming down here. So what I'm doing is I come down, I visualize this, I think of the corner. I'm seeing this shape here. I'm taking and thinking of the ulna fitting in here. The radius is coming from here, and so I'm actually turning the arm a little bit. When I turn the arm, and again, when we deal with the lower arm, we'll talk about this, that the elbow doesn't change. It's the radius that moves over the elbow. So the elbow doesn't rotate. The ulna does not rotate. It's a radius, that's why they call it radius, because it rotates around. So you're treating this right at this point now, seeing this is a sort of an oval or squarish type end here. Now, I give the condyle on the other side. Even if I can't see it, I tend to draw through as if I could see it. Now, what we've got now is we've got the brachial muscle, which is pulling from roughly about here now. This is going behind. So this is actually going through, and we've got the radius turned here, coming across this way. This is actually going down and attaching to the ulna, which is now behind here. So we see this muscle is taking and coming down. Your biceps is going through here and coming from over here. This is coming across here now. This is pulling down and going like this, and it's coming over the top of the brachial muscle. And it's coming down, and it's actually now attaching in here, this way. So now you've got these two lines going through here. Your deltoid is coming around from over here. And, well, first we can, of course, we can take and think of the pectoralis muscle, which would be going over this point, attaching in here, this way. And this becomes that cylinder that's coming off of the chest. Deltoid is coming over this and attaching in here. So we've got that coming through, coming across, the deltoid pulling around from behind. So we've got these points, and there's a definite corner here. So we're coming through, and we're seeing this is going underneath here, coming down, corner, going behind to here. Now, what happens right here, of course, and again, when we get in view with the lower arm, you have the muscles that are pulling often are just sort of referring to as the ridge muscles. The brachial radialis muscle comes across and actually attaches to the end of the radius here. And you've got another one that comes here, and then we start pulling from these common tendon in here. The idea, these are pulling sort of, and like I say, I was suggesting that we think of this like a seam going down here. These are coming off of that point right here. We're going over that surface, coming down, and we're pulling down. The muscles themselves aren't very long. It's the tendons that keep going through here. Now, on the other side of this seam is now your tricep. So we're thinking now, and the triceps are all basically working to the end of the ulna here. So the bulk, then we start to see all of this bulk in here is the triceps. Now let's look at this from the back. Now, if we're sticking with the same arm here, your triceps, basically 3 heads. You've got 2 that are grabbing hold of the bone here. The 3rd head is going over to the scapula. And again, we've discussed this a bit already. So we've got the triceps coming down, but they're coming over and attaching to here. So we're going across down to this point here. And in fact, the triceps is, we tend to, again, I think that maybe I just tend to think of biceps as being the big muscle, but the triceps is actually, the 3 of them tend to be actually maybe even larger and fuller. So if you look at this from the back then, scapula, the rib cage would be through here. Your sphenoid cavity, we're pulling out. Again, I'm saying make an issue out of seeing these condyles. These are the points that you work for. So I come through, I focus on those points. Then the ulna coming through here, the radius would be up here. So pulling from right here then is your long head of the triceps. We've got two other heads that are taking and basically focusing on here and down through here this way. The long head comes across, pulling through. Right. And all of these muscles now are taking pulling to a common tendon now. And it's taking and coming down from here. And so we get this horseshoe shape from how the muscles build one on top of the other. And we get the feeling of this pull here. Now, one of the elements of this, think of the shape of the, dealing with that tendon coming down to the elbow, is that focusing on this area right here. If I take and here's the end of the ulna. Found, and when you look at this, you can see it's really has a pretty square corner to it. You can really feel across the corner and coming around. It's pretty square, and it's like a claw that fits over and rides on top of the surface here. So the feeling and looking at that claw section here. So the tendon is taking and attaching to it for all three of these muscles now. Except that it's not just the cord going up here. You actually have muscle that comes down along the side of this thing also, this way. So we actually get a line of muscle that pulls down through here like this. Then we're pulling into the tendon through here. So this part here. So now this is where we're dealing with right here. Let me sort of draw this with a different color. So we've got tendon coming through. We have the horseshoe shape. So the muscle is taking and coming down like this. And it's coming along side through here. The muscle part is pulling, coming all the way down along the edge here. But this really starts to bulge at this point through. This is going back, deltoids coming around. So we've got the brachial, we've got the triceps, the brachial muscle, and then the biceps. And we've got what I refer to as these ridge muscles coming in between your brachial muscle and your triceps. Well, this is the combination of the actual, if you look at this as a cross section, the cross section of this is more like well, sort of pizza. With somebody took the bite off the end. Okay. So what's fairly narrow at the bicep section here. But then as we come out here, this gets very wide in the back. So the back of your arm is real wide, and it gets fairly narrow as we come through in here. Now, if we take and look at the arm coming straight out again from the front. Okay. So now what we're dealing with is starting here, thinking this is the deltoids attaching to these. Through, pulling across, attaching across the scapula, and coming around. I'm doing this point here, and I'm taking going down here, and start to visualize the deltoid now coming around the corner. Now, in doing this, I really take into consideration the scaroid process, because the muscles have to go around this corner, and the ball of the socket here, all of this stuff creates a rather large. If I just even do this, you can see that you've got a corner. The muscle's actually going up here, attaching up in here, your deltoid. So there's a fairly good volume in here that we're working on. So try to feel this corner coming around and through. deltoid, but lifted it up, so raising the arm and lifting it up from this point, and then coming across. This is pulling around over the biceps now, coming through. The pectoralis muscle is pulling into this. Pulling in, and generally these two things sort of blend in. But you want to make a point of seeing that this is a corner here. A definite corner coming through, feel this coming in. Now, looking to the condyle, I'm taking and drawing arms straight out type thing. Okay. Visualize where you feel this corner here. Think of where it's coming around, pulling through. Okay. These triceps now, talking about you have 3 heads. The one head is now, this is when we feel this sagging underneath, coming through this way. That's your triceps. Well, hopefully it's your triceps. It's probably a lot of other stuff besides. Okay? But theoretically, it's your triceps. Okay? But now, the brachialis is pulling from the choroid process over here. That'll come through in here. And so we actually get this, there's a groove that's created in here between your brachial muscle, your biceps, and your triceps underneath in here. And in this groove, if we were looking at this as a cross section, you could actually feel it's like this. Within that groove, you have all kinds of arteries and veins and nerves that are running through that point from the inside of the arm in here. So it's a combination of a lot of different things. One of the things that I want to keep in mind is brachialis muscle and the biceps are coming from the same place. The biceps is running high up this way, and the brachialis is running low through here. But they're coming from the same spot here. So now we're seeing this. I'm drawing rather with a skinny arm here. The biceps then is going off and it goes at a diagonal. Up this way, coming across, through, and then it goes down through here. Now, triceps behind. Okay, remember we were dealing with the scapula here, that we had teres major going underneath. We had the teres major coming from over here, going underneath the arm, this way. We also had the latissimus dorsi coming around and going up underneath and here and coming through. So all of those now would be coming up and fitting in here, this way. So we've got the triceps behind. There's also at this point the brachial muscle then taking and coming in and filling up part of this space in here, and possibly over here, but mainly we would see that right here. And then you have what's called an intermuscular septum that pulls from that condyle, that tends to go back through in here. So that's just like a dividing line between muscles. Okay. So now these ridge muscles then are taking and coming over and going through in here. In the view that I'm drawing here, you may not see any of the triceps or the long head of the triceps that we're taking and dealing with here. So now we can go back and look at this. We've got these coming through. We've got the deltoid is coming actually from all the way back here. Around, but normally we don't see this section very clearly, but we will tend to think of it as coming from over here, going over the tricep and attaching in between the triceps and the biceps, right exactly where the brachial muscle takes and begins. So these are all these things are taking coming through. going across, pull through, over, down, and going in this way. We get all of this stuff pulling through, and we've got to feel this going out, coming in here, and we've got to fill through. Now that's sort of an extreme view of the thing. We can also look at, we start thinking this. We've got, this is coming down this way, corner, pull through this. This is a cylinder coming in. Got this width. Got this actually has a fair amount of thickness, volume to it. As we start to pull down to these conducts. If we, what I'm doing here now, for instance, people see, we've got this shape here. We would be thinking of this as something that's going underneath this way. And we've got another shape that's coming through in here. This is really, you're getting a wedging shape that this is coming in between something that's going this way, and then this is fitting in again. So that comes down to seeing something like, we look at this as a simple characterization of this, simplifying the shape. Deltoid, biceps and triceps combined now. So they're looking at this saying this is sort of a vertical type shape here, exaggerating that a bit, coming across, seeing that this is more of a horizontal type of shape that we're fitting into. And then these muscles here taking and fitting into this, coming across the corner, so we start to see this type of an arrangement there. So for pulling down, put something in between, and this is where your brachial muscle would be coming in between, going down. Feel this coming through, coming up. So, now, most of the time you're not dealing with people that are really heavily built, muscular. So, but if you could, even if you take it very, very simple, I'm just taking here a your average arm. Okay. Now, where we work with this is if you understand what the muscles are doing, then it becomes just a matter of taking a subtle, you pull this in, okay, got your biceps pulling in. You've got our ridge muscles pulling in. You hit the dimple where the condyle's at. Feel the corner. You feel the deltoid coming through here. Get a slight dipping in here, and you're probably not going to see much of anything here. We could take a little bit of the triceps, possibly, coming through here. So once you recognize what it is that you're dealing with, you can see these things. They're really quite clear. And same thing if we take this back view of the arm, come through and think of it as just, so I'm going out of my way now to take and keep this very, very simple contour. That's about what we see. So then you start to think, well, okay, now deltoids coming through, not the back view, I should say, you don't want the same thing here. Taking, and you feel the pecs will come in. And a lot of times this gets very ambiguous about what's in front. Now, the biceps would just be a line coming through. Feel the condyle here, and we get a little bit of pull through here, and maybe this is going to come across. Pretty simple to take and deal. But if you're taking and recognizing, if you know what goes where, it's not that. see the subtle tones that we go. The model we have today, she's not muscular, slender arm. And you also have to remember that there's always a layer, or rather thick layer of skin and fat that goes over them. So where we really begin all the time is just like what I started here. You see first, simple cylinder, possibly box, looking for the condyles. We deal with simple volumes over the surface. And you slowly take and add more and more muscles as you need to as you go through the thing. But we tend to get way, way too complicated with it. And you can see we're dealing with really a very limited number of muscles here. It's not really that complicated.
Okay, now, first thing, of course, always, is to get the general gesture through. I'm really just focusing on the arm. So, but even so, I want to take and feel where the hand is coming down, through, and in, shoulder, the neck, pulling, twisting. The other arm is taking and going back up into here. Arm coming down, corner, scapula, going back. Now, first I visualize this as a simple volume, going both ways. And I come up to the wrist, I'm seeing this as a oval, rectangular type form. And coming down, I look to the condyles, crossed, even though the arm is sitting on the leg and part of that is lost. Still, cross through, feel the end of the ulna fitting in, so the triangle shows the direction. Now, with the condyle here, and we're talking about how those ridge muscles are fitting to the curve of the bone. I take this into consideration, so that as the arm is bent, these muscles now are taking and bending and bulging at this point. So we feel this surface, right, over this surface. We're coming around, going over the surface. This way, these muscles are attaching on the bone right there. And the arm is turned and twisting in that direction. So these muscles now are really getting a strong compression. So you feel up here would be your brachial muscle coming down. And we feel the compression coming through into here. Now, so I've got this corner. I really think of this now as a corner. So I'm looking for that edge, try to feel the base of the form now as we're pulling down into here. Now, at this point you can see we're taking and getting the squareness of the ulna. This goes back through here. The brachioradialis brevis now is taking and pulling from in this point here, and this is cutting across, going off in this direction. And your longus and your brachioradialis through. So all of this now is surface that's going down. Simple form, keeping a simple volume that I'm dealing with. Now, from here then to the ulna side of the bone here, we take in your flexor brachiolaris is taking in the fullness, going through and going down through. But we have a clear-cut corner here. We feel the edge coming through. Now, you also at this point then have all of your extenders that are coming from that common tendon coming out from behind and here, going over the surface, taking and coming across and going up. Now, of course, we have your thumb muscles and your index muscles coming across here through. So, but generally speaking, we have the volumes here, and we get a rather simple form coming across through here. Now, as we have, we try to see the space of the wrist taking place. And here we really feel your carpal bones would be in this corner here, and we feel there's actually a bending taking place here as we go up into your metacarpal, pulling off through in here. And so this really becomes then a palm of the hand turning away, to feel the volume, and to actually see this as a corner pushing down now, going through this way, getting a lot of folding taking place at that point. Now, I'm going to go back to the elbow here. We feel this point now, we've got that with an anacondas muscle coming through, which we don't see much of anything, we just get a little pulling through in here. The plate of the triceps tendon is taking and going through, coming down in here, and this is a rather relaxed form here, so we're seeing just a slight swelling in here of those triceps as they come down to the other side, come down through, and we pick up a little bit of the condyle that's being buried underneath in here. Now, as these are coming around, we can see that this is a fitting down into here. In other words, I'm really getting this bulge coming around. And that brachial muscle now would be coming right out of here. Your deltoid is coming from here, attaching, it's coming around. The scapula is coming through in here. Deltoid's pulling off of that scapula, coming down, and pulling in, and pulling from behind. Now that would be probably the biceps there, the brachial muscle would be more, and through here. Through, feel the corner, pushing the sides back, coming over the surface, fitting in. The long head of the triceps then is taking and coming through here and going over to the scapula. In here, we feel a pull in here. Deltoids coming down low in here. We feel this pull through, since the arm is coming forward. There's actually a corner in here where this is taking and stepping down through. I feel this surface coming around a bit more. We're feeling this pull through, going over through, and pull from under. Now, what's happening underneath here is this is your teres major coming across this point, going underneath the long head of your triceps. And we also, at this point, getting the latissimus dorsi coming through in here. Now, so this is changing direction. This is going back up here because the end of the scapula, and we feel it pushing back into where we feel the trapezius is coming down. So we feel there's this bit of a dimple and going back. Feel the clavicle fitting in at this point right here. And trapezius then are taking and going back up. And as they turn away, pushing the tone, going back. And we start to get the overlapping of forms. Twisting goes behind. Feel this shape going back in and here. The infraspinatus then becomes the shape that we deal with at this point, coming through and underneath. And you would have a teres minor, which is basically, we don't ever see that coming through, or I should say very rarely. The trapezius, now it's coming down along this line of the scapula, and through, and we feel the pull, the figure is turning a bit, so we feel the scapula is twisting, or I should say sticking out here. And part of this shape would be the compression of the latissimus. But it's all a shape that is going down and in, so I'm trying to emphasize stuff coming around from underneath. There's a little more volume to the triceps in here and coming through. As I'm taking, again, blocking and generally speaking, through. There's the neck going down, through. Here I'm actually blocking in also the fact that the whole rib cage is taking and going out. She's this. Now, got the rib cage basically, but you want to feel she's really twisting. Now, that arm, when I said it's coming out, first I'm visualizing this thing, the placement, where it's at. See this as a cylinder that's coming out. And see that as a warm cylinder that's going in the opposite direction again. So first I want to feel the clavicle, taking, turning, going in and going back. Okay. Now, here, I'm going to go through it like last time. Here, look at the condyles. Condyles become my key to which way it's tilted, and the end of the ulna is in here. Now, first I break this down into a series of simple volumes. First I want to see the pectoralis muscle pulling off of the chest, going up, over, and around the biceps. So we're feeling the pull, forms going over. The deltoid would be behind that. So going over surface. Biceps now is a volume coming out of here, and it's then a diagonal. It's going over the surface. It's turning and going up and behind. It's attached on the other side. In here, what we have is the, actually this has to be pulled back a bit farther. What we have in here is the brachial muscle now coming through, feeling in part and here. Underneath here, we have the medial head, triceps, the long head of the triceps. And we then are taking and dealing also with the brachial muscle, taking, going through. Now, at this point, important to right away realize that we're getting a twist. So I'm taking and focusing on the wrist as being a box form is turned. And so what we see then are the muscles now that are pulling here, twisting, going over. Twisting, going, so this is I'm drawing a simple shape first. Going over, and we're pulling into, well here, the shape that dominates right here is the end of the ulna. In other words, it's the continuation of this bone here. Now, on the other side, we're seeing coming from behind, we're seeing, which would be the extenders coming through, they're going behind this shape in here, and coming from underneath, very, very strong feeling now for the flexors, but this is again, this is a coming from underneath, you feel the curve, and we can take and feel the stuff dropping down, coming through into here. Then you get the wrist, and we get the stuff dropping over, going away. Now we go back to this, feel the corner, feel the edge of the bone coming through, and this is then going back through in here. The lateral condyle is sticking out through in here. And then as this takes and comes through here, we really feel this point in here, and the plate of the triceps is on the side in here and within this area, and then we're seeing the triceps coming down through in here. Break is a real distinct break between these muscles, and you would want to feel the latissimus taking and pulling from in here, which would be over the top of the teres major. So we're feeling all of these things pulling through. Now, pushing back. This drawing's a bit small for doing all of this. The idea is to take and see all these forms pulling through. Still, as I'm doing it, I'm thinking of the rib cage inside. These things build up, going over, going back. The fact that you're making this all curved like this gives the image that somehow the arm is broken, or let's take and go through this again real fast here to break this down. Now, first the arm is going away this direction. Okay, feel the end of the ulna sticking up, corner. Then we're taking and going down in this direction. Now, you have to take into consideration that there's, besides a anatomical structure, there's a visual structure. Okay, first we take in here the anatomy. We see across the condyles, we feel the end of the ulna sticking up. And this actually is part then of what that bone is. Now, when I talk about a visual structure, that we take, as you got this line going in here, but I'm pulling this from the condyle here. Now, we try to tie this line in. Then I'm taking and pulling this simple volume coming through. But the eye is still picking up that line. Now, in here, I'm thinking of here's the corner of the bone. I'm going to take and actually feeling the corner of the ulna. Condyle is out here. Okay. We feel the shape now. These that I'm taking and keeping this as a very simple volume. We're pulling in through here. Now, as we pull back the opposite direction, going down to the arm, down to the shoulder, first I wanted this as a visual line, not so much an anatomical line. Taking this is coming all the way down to the scapula. Okay, so what this becomes part of then is the tendon, the long head of the triceps. Feel this pull, but I'm more interested in the line at this point. We would feel the shape of the muscle. So I'm dealing with simple shapes now. This coming through. Feel the corner. Now, they come through. This is a rounded forms in here. We'll be taking on the front, but the first thing that we deal with is the pull. This shape right here is the corabrachialis muscle. The biceps now is coming from behind that, and that's taking and going to the other side. And so from in here now, coming through, up in here, this is going to be your brachial muscle underneath. We also have the triceps now continuing, pulling through. All of this, in other words, we have in here is the medial head of the triceps. You can feel the way the core takes and defines our corner here. Coming through, feeling the edge, coming out from here. This becomes the edge of the plate of the triceps. Start coming through. So what I'm trying to do is to create a line that gives us a sense of structure. The deltoid would be behind this, and your pectoralis muscles are taking and going up over. And so what we get is a solid feeling instead of this wavy. Now, I'm doing this. again, I'm really focusing on the arm, but I want to take and block in. What I'm doing, so looking through. Ellipse gives basic angle of the head. Here. Now, pulling back. Now, the whole rib cage coming through, down, and really feeling this simple shape now. Try to keep it pretty much uncomplicated. Now, like I said, I'm just primarily focusing on the arm, but I want to block in simple volumes. Now, pretty simple. Okay, now, scapula. I'm looking at where the ear, I gotta move this over to about here. It's coming up, going across. So I'm looking at two-dimensional placement as well as I'm taking and thinking of the volume. Okay. Feel the edge of the scapula coming down, coming basically to halfway to the rib cage. Now, come down the arm and across placement. Come through. Okay. Now, first, I'm just doing this as a way of visualizing what direction the arm is going. So I'm seeing this as a very simple, very simple volume. Nothing complicated. I'm thinking, okay, now we're pulling here. We feel this whole, all of this, the muscles now that are pulling off of the rib cage. Breast would be underneath there. Now, so we're focusing on the arm here. Actually, let's go all the way back. Now, when I think of the end of the scapula, I'm looking at the trapezius muscles as they come off of the neck, coming over to the surface here, over, pushing in, going across. Over the surface, feeling that what I'm drawing here is actually the way you feel, to see that curve as I'm saying that this is where the trapezius pinch coming down. And we're taking and pulling down this all the way through here. Now, to go back across, I'm really focusing on the fact that the scapula, as it goes through, the end of it is really quite squarish. So I'm thinking of the corner, clavicle, you can see just a bit of it on the other side. Now, the muscles are coming off of the scapula, the teres major. You can actually feel the pull of this coming across through here. But since it goes underneath the triceps, you also have this plane that is going underneath this way. So I'm still treating these as very simple shapes. Okay. Then we have the infraspinatus coming through, and here we feel a little bit of the bulging of the muscle because of the tension. Deltoid is coming all the way from back here. And the corner, as it pulls off of here, it fits in roughly right about here, but it's on the other side. So this is jerking and going down and going in, so it click towards heading. Now, since she's got the pressure on here, all the long head of the triceps, all this is piling up, so we actually get a bulging in here. This is coming through something like this. And we feel this sitting back, going back around this way. Now, come down, pushing the idea that the condyles is the point that we look for here and here. The end of the ulna now is actually coming in line with that because the arm is straight. Now, the basic pattern that we looked at is that we have that curve of the bone here. These we've been referring to as the ridge muscles coming through, coming down, so we can feel this is very distinct now. Got a lot of pressure on it. We can feel this pulling through. The condyle on the other side, now this is really pushing out here, and we can feel the line through here. That's the intermuscular septum. Now, underneath the triceps, we can feel the triceps coming down to the end of the ulna. the sheet, or plate, I should say, of the tendon of the triceps is in this area in here, like this. The triceps itself taking and pushing out, coming through, coming down. On the other side, we can feel here you have the medial head underneath. We have the long head on top, and this is full. And this then is what's going over into here. Now, going back into here, we have part of the fullness here is your latissimus and your serratus anterior from underneath here, plus teres major. The rib cage is still coming through. So even though I'm not getting a lot of detail in here, it's the simple shape is what gives us the information. Now, from here, and I come down to where I'm at here, I look at the cross section. Again, this is like seeing that as the box form that goes through in here. And I'm feeling there is the transition to your carpal, your wrist bones. Then we start going out to the hands, going off out here. Now the bone, this point right here is the same as that. So this is your ulna coming down to here. Okay. Then we feel the tendons, muscles taking, coming down to pull through and go into the wrist, your P-bone in here, comes through. And so we have this fullness, and this takes and comes all the way over to where the bone would be in here. And it's coming through from that condyle. Well, these are all, your flexors are coming from this point in here, off of that point through, coming down. Now on this side, here we have, coming from here now, you have your extenders that are pulling. These are coming to the top of your hand. So what I'm seeing then is the pull of these muscles coming down, through, coming over. Now here you can feel the corner here. Feel this stepping down right here. And you can see the fullness of this point right here, coming through. You can see these muscles. See, the muscles stop fairly short up here. Right? The muscles are stopping right at this point. So I'm really thinking that's where the muscles stop. The tendon continues on past that point. But I try to be careful about seeing the overlapping. And in this case, maybe I'm exaggerating it a bit. You want to feel these things pulling. We can feel is that anaconda's muscle that comes through and creates a shape in here. These things are coming off that condyle, coming through. And here, going back up now, and take and feel the stuff coming around the corner. And there's a fullness in here. Now, I've drawn as if there wasn't any skin. I feel there's skin, a little bit of fat, a pull, all rounded up, coming in front, coming through. So that gives a pretty good break. Now you can see the way I can use the tone now to come around, drawing that shape of that muscle as it takes and pulls into the plate of the tendon here, coming through. And feel the edge here, a little farther out, overlapping. Now, feel the rib cage coming down. Now, as we come through from there, now I think a little bit of time here. Let's take and do scapula on the other side. Now the arm is going back away from us this way. Okay, that was it. Okay. Too many lumps. Let's take this view here. Even though this arm is coming out at us, let's take and see, okay. Down. I look across. Now I can't see any of the condyles here, but I can imagine where they are and which thing is going through here. Volume, and forward. Here I'm actually even drawing in the sense of what those ridge muscles are now. But what is coming across very clear is the fact that the wrist is turned. So now I can really see coming across and seeing the small or the end of the ulna coming through, and they can sort of think, but that's got to be going over this way. The radius has got to be going that way. So as I break this down then into the simple shapes, well, first we can see this, there is a slight bend in here. Okay, we start to feel the pull through, coming in. You can feel this muscle now, it's coming off of that ridge up here. It's going way up into here. And it's coming across. So the first one is taking the brachioradialis is coming over. And the extensor brachioradialis, or I should say the brachial muscle here. Brachioradialis, and then extend the long one. Taking, coming through in here. And then when you look at the silhouette, you can see the overlapping now, and these coming out from behind. Now, as far as drawing the shapes, keep this fairly simple here. I want to feel the fullness, the shape as it pulls down through in here. And it's pretty much controlling the value now. I'm not allowing it to get too dark. You want to feel over here, I can really feel the corner of the radius now coming through. And this, as it pulls across them, we really feel this pull. There's just a fine underneath coming through. So I would tend to even maybe draw this as a simple shape in here that I could make these forms now. Somehow stop this foreshortened view coming towards you is a little more difficult. No, feel the hand, you got to feel the corner. The carpal bones are giving us an edge in here as we come forward with the hand. Now, in here, all of your flexors, you can really feel the bulging in here. But at the same time, we can feel the condyle just coming out of here. So these are coming off a combination now of in between the radius and the ulna and that common tendon in here. And these are all taking and going underneath, so we really push this under. Now, as we come through now, as this goes back in here, what we can see is the biceps now is taking, and it's slightly shortened because she's turning the wrist. So we feel a little bit of compression taking place at this point here, stepping down. This becomes sort of the brachial muscle underneath in here. The fullness of that is taking and coming through, is taking and going over and attaching to the ulna on the other side here. But we can really feel this stuff going back, this coming through. Now as we pull from here, going back in, now the idea of we've got the biceps is at a diagonal coming from over here. So this shape then is coming across this way. We're going over the surface, feeling the pull is coming across in here. On the underside here, then we're getting the medial head of the triceps going under, through in here. Now on top, we get the deltoid coming across through, and it's coming in between into here. The brachial muscle, which we don't really see the definition of that, but that would be in here. And then triceps behind that again, pulling through up into here. All of this is sort of blended together with the deltoid coming in. Now I'm getting more definition than I can actually see. But we feel the corner, need to feel the corner of the deltoid. At this point, as I come up where the biceps is going in here, the pectoralis major is coming around the corner. We're fitting in. This has a definite side to it as we're coming in. The deltoid has a side to it as we're coming down through. And again, this will be part of the pec coming through. The fact that the muscle twists, and here the biceps coming through. Feel the pull that goes underneath, but it's at a diagonal, which is the important part right here. And so we're seeing triceps underneath. Try to feel this plane is going in that direction. This is taking and coming through and is a flat to that. As we fit in, and I could make more of this sort of folding to give us a direction. Going back, overlapping, fold, and through. Here, maybe do a little bit more of getting, but that's, I think I'm overstating that. And if these fit in, if I'm using an indirect lighting here, I would be showing this stuff taking and going through. And feel it's coming from behind. The thumb muscles would be going at a diagonal in here. Going through. And the hand is up in here. Going through. We could take and carry this deltoid back up a little bit. Running into your drawings up here. Going through. Now, just a couple of comments on some of this stuff here. So this, what you got here, you got the twist, but we forgot the corners. It's almost too much. The twisting is working great, but what we needed to have was some kind of a solidity coming through on the thing. So the twist is a combination of different muscles, lines that we take and we build in, but the twist is working okay. And here, this feels flat here. See, the deltoid actually, the distance here is too great for where the deltoid comes down. But the deltoid has to take and it would be much lower. The corner is up here, but we would be seeing the side of this. There's actually a very small space where the long head of the triceps pulls in and your teres major comes underneath. And these would have to have more of a corner that then pulls over the surface that we feel then, the triceps. And the long head of the tricep coming over. Okay.